All right, this is your notes number 8 video. It should be your second set of notes for this week. Make sure you have your paper set up all correctly with name, date, period, title, essential question. We should have already done this as a warm-up activity in class. So we are basically just starting with this part. We are in section 2-2 in the book. So you just have to look for what page that is. Later on, I'll show page numbers. But all of these theorems and postulates are found in the book. And I wrote it shorthand because this is what you can write when you're doing a proof. So I figured this would be nice to just have it nice and short, but listen carefully when I tell you like how to read it. Like if I asked you to read it to me, this is what I would want you to say. So the number one, this one is a theorem. If two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then corresponding angles are congruent. So the key part here, corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, here's the next one. Again, pause whenever you need to. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Again, this is how you would read it to me, so make sure you know what everything stands for. So for number 2, it says if two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then alternate interior angles are congruent. Here's another one. Make sure you copy this correctly. So again, this is how you would say it. If two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then alternate exterior angles are congruent. All right, and then here's the fourth one. If two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then same side interior angles are supplementary. Remember, supplementary means that they add up to 180. Same side interior angles are supplementary. So notice that this one, number 4, is different than the other ones because it has supplementary angles, whereas the 1, 2, and 3 properties all have congruent, 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 which means that they have equal measure. On this fourth one, the two angles that are same side interior, they're supplementary, they add up to 180. So another thing I want you to notice is that all of these are saying if two parallel lines are cut by transversal. So in all of these, we are given that we do have parallel lines and that they are cut by a transversal, just like basically what we had in this warm-up problem. Two parallel lines cut by transversal, and then we have all these angles that are made, and these are the properties about them. Corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are congruent. Same side interior angles are supplementary. Okay, so what we'll do next is, again, pause if you need to, but we're moving on. Here's an example from alex.com from your homework. This is from number 8 homework, and there was no number 7, just so you know. You should have done a flip grid. So for this example, this is like 4, 5, and 6 will be just like this. We have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. Let me just mark that they are parallel. That's the mark to show that lines are parallel. Given two parallel lines cut by transversal, measure of angle 7 is 60 degrees. Find measure of angle 2 and measure of angle 4. Okay, so looking at this, I would want to maybe mark what I know, and I'm going to maybe circle what I need to find. So measure of angle 7 is 60. So I find the 7, that's 60 degrees. And I need to find 2 and 4. So I'm just marking it, kind of figuring out what do I know, what do I need to find. What I'm going to do next is mark with a highlighter. These are going to be my congruent angles. So measure of angle 7 is 60. So 7 is here. 6 is its vertical angle, which is also congruent. I could also mark the other angles that are congruent. So looking at where 7 is, 3 is corresponding. Angle 2 is alternate exterior. Oh, that's pretty much all of them that are congruent. Okay, but now that I've highlighted the ones that are congruent to angle 7, I can see that actually answers part of the question. Measure of angle 2 is equal to 60 degrees as well. It is congruent to angle 7 because they're alternate exterior angles. Okay, so looking at measure of angle 4, it's going to be supplementary because look at angle 2 and angle 4. They're a linear pair. A linear pair of angles are supplementary. So I just have to do 180 minus 60, and that gives me 120. So measure of angle 4 equals 120 degrees. And I can check my answer just by looking in here. 2 definitely looks like an acute angle, so 60 makes sense. 4 looks like an obtuse angle, 120, that makes sense. Even if it's not drawn to scale, I can see that they are a linear pair. They should add up to 180, and that 2 and 3 and 6 and 7 are all congruent. They should all be 60. Okay, so now I have one more problem that's similar to alex.com. Should have enough room. Okay, so one more problem. Let me zoom out just a bit. Okay, so for this one, again, this is alex.com. This is like number 7 and 8. Given that line H is parallel to G, cut by transversal, line T, find the values of X and Z. So I've got my lines H and G and T. I like to mark parallel. It does say it's parallel, so I can now mark that H is parallel to G. And then I have all these angles formed. They're not all numbered though. So anyways, what I can do is I can see what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find X and Z. So here's X. Oops, I made a mistake when I wrote this. That should be Z right there, I think. I don't think it really matters. So let's make that 4Z plus 10. They should have both been X. So anyways, I'm still going to just keep going. So here is the angle that is 70. Its vertical angle is also congruent. And then I could do corresponding angles. We don't need to know it, but there's corresponding. And then I also have alternate exterior. So those are all congruent. Now the ones that are supplementary would be the other 4. So right here would be the linear pair. Right here is also a linear pair for 70. And then I've got these ones also. Those are also supplementary. So when you have parallel lines cut by a transversal, you basically have pairs of angles that are either congruent or supplementary. Okay, so to find the value of X and Z, I think I'm going to start with X because I noticed right away that 70 degrees would be right here. You can even write it in. So I have 70 and X, those should equal 180. So all I have to do for X is 180 minus 70 degrees, and that would be 110. So measure of angle X equals 110 degrees. All you have to do, since they're supplementary, is 180 minus 70. Okay, so then to find Z, let me do the work for Z over here. I can see, oh, they are congruent because they're alternate exterior. When we have 2 parallel lines cut by transversal, alternate exterior angles are congruent, so their measures are equal. Okay, so set it up like this. 70 equals 4Z plus 10, and then I just have to isolate the variable. So subtract 10 to both sides, and that gives me 60 equals 4Z. I'm kind of running out of space, but you would divide both sides by the 4. 60 divided by 4 is 15. And that's not degrees. Z actually just equals 15. So I'm going to circle my answers. Actually, it doesn't say find the measure of angle X. It just says find out what X equals, and X equals 110. But the measure of angle X is 110 degrees. But it's just saying find the value of X and Z. So that is it. All right, so now the next thing, we're going to do some questions in the book. So on the book, page 73, 75, 77. As you're going through your notes, don't forget 3 questions per page and 1 summary per lesson. I still have people forgetting that. So like if this was your notes and you had just this one little bit, you would still need 1 question to the left. On a full page, you need 3, kind of like by each hole punch. Okay, and then a summary at the end of each lesson. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the book, page 73. So I'm going to just do a couple examples with you guys. So please follow along and write in your book. You will have to include pictures of this when you turn in your notes for the week. So it says identify all the numbered angles that are congruent to the given angle. Remember, congruent means it has the same size, same shape of an angle. So the given angle here on number 1, we have 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal. The given, or what do they call it? Yeah, the given angle is 51. So they want me to give all of the congruent angles. So I know that 7 is vertical angle, it's congruent. And then I know alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate interior, yeah. And then I also know corresponding. So you don't have to write down, oh, you do. You have to justify your answers. So I'm going to just write by each one that's corresponding angles. This one was alternate interior, and this one was vertical. Okay, so all of the ones that are congruent to that one are angle 7, congruent to angle 4, congruent to angle 5, and they're all congruent to angle 51, or the 51 degrees. Okay, so I justified my answers by saying that they're corresponding or alternate interior or vertical. All right, and then let's also take a look at this one. It's a little more confusing looking. So we do have parallel lines. That one's more of a ray. And then they're cut by a transversal. If you ever get confused, do like I do, highlight, and it might help. So the angle that we're focusing on, the given angle, is the one that they give you the degrees for, which is 120. From here, I would know its vertical angle would be the same, but there is no vertical angle because the line doesn't keep going, it's just a ray. So looking over here, I would think, okay, there's same side, or sorry, alternate interior. And then this one is corresponding. So 1 and 3 are also congruent. So I'm going to write that. That angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, which they're congruent to the 120 degrees. And then I have to justify it. So this is the corresponding angle. And then this one was the alternate interior angle. Okay. And then after this, again, this was page 73. Let's go to this proof. This is page 75. So now we're going to use some of the reasons that we just wrote down in the notes. Supply the missing reasons in the 2-column proof. So we are given that A is parallel to B. So always look at the information given. And we are also given that C is parallel to D. So we have 2 sets of parallel lines, and they also are intersecting and making angle pairs. So it says angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary, and I have to give a reason. So given that A and B are parallel, now we're looking at 3 and 2. So if I look at angles 3 and 2, they are 2 lines. Like when you have parallel lines cut by transversal, you have to think, what are they? They're supplementary. So if you look at the notes, remember we take notes to use. There's only one of these that says supplementary. It's the number 4 one. So I'm going to write that whole thing in. They're same side interior. Just make sure that makes sense. 2 and 3, yeah, they are on the same side and they are on the interior. So I have to write that whole reason. If 2 parallel lines are CBT, then same side, side interior angles are congruent. Okay, so if 2, that's a 2. If 2 parallel lines are cut by transversal, then same side interior, same side interior angles are, I was trying to make it fit. They are supplementary. Angles are, which is different than congruent. Supplementary means that they add to 180. Supplementary. angles. Okay. Then they put right here, C is parallel to D. That is our other given information. So given that C is parallel to D, let's look at angles 1 and 2. So now I'm looking at 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Okay, so 1 and 2 are supplementary. Okay, so that looks really similar to what we just did. They are same side interior. I forgot to write interior. No, I did. Okay. So it's actually the same thing. It's kind of like a pattern. So again, if two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then same side interior angles are sup. We can write sup for short. So you can see I would definitely need to be looking back at my notes to know what to put. That's why we write these down in the notes. Okay. Otherwise, you could easily forget a word or something. You have to write that. Okay, then the last one. So if we're going that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, they're not like alternate interior angles or vertical angles. They're kind of like nothing. There's not a name for that. So what I would look at is on our list, we have the congruent supplements theorem and the congruent complements theorem. So looking at this, it says that 3 and 2 are supplementary and 1 and 2 are supplementary. Notice how they are both supplementary to 2. If 3 is supplementary to 2 and 1 is supplementary to 2, then they must equal the same amount. They must be congruent. So that's what the congruent supplements theorem says. So A and C are congruent if they're both supplementary to B. So I just have to write congruent supplements theorem. Okay, so that's a little bit of practice on a proof. I think there is one more thing I want to work with you guys at. On page 77, these two on the bottom, just a little more practice. Again, page 77. Find measures of angle 2, or find measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2. Justify each answer. So basically, you're looking to see where are the parallel lines and what are the relationships between the angles. So if this angle is 75, I would know that angle 1 is corresponding. Angle 1 is corresponding. So measure of angle 1 equals 75. They would be congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. But then I can see that 2 is supplementary. Also, 1 and 2 are same side interior, which are supplementary. So that's actually the reason I would use. Angle 1 and angle 2 are same side interior. Same side interior. So they are supplementary. I would take 180 and minus the 75, and I get 105. So measure of angle 2 equals 105 degrees. So 75 and 1, they're corresponding. So they're congruent. But then 1 and 2 are same side interior, plus 75 and 2 are a linear pair. So they're supplementary. And so if I think about 2 being 105, that makes sense because those add up to 180. And then angle 1 is the same as that one, so it's 75. Okay, so now look at the next one. This is kind of weird because we have, it's not exactly a parallelogram, but a quadrilateral formed with parallel lines. It's kind of weird looking. So first, let's look at, here's 80 degrees, and here's the 1. I see that angle 1 is, what is it to 80? Same side interior. Same side interior. I would say 280 degrees. So they are sup. So this is because I have to justify. That's why I'm writing it out. So measure of angle 1 is, you would just take 180 minus that 80 degrees. So I get 100. So that's for that part. Now for 2, I'm looking at the parallel lines cut by transversal. Look at 2 and 70. Do you think that they're congruent or supplementary? And then you have to justify and say why. So I would say angle 2 is alternate interior. Alternate interior to 70 degrees. They're congruent. So measure of angle 2 equals 70 degrees. All right, so that is it. Make sure that you take pictures of the notes or of the bookwork and include it when you upload the notes. Make sure when you upload the notes, it's in Google Slides or Google Doc. And that's about it. Good job.